My belief in the good news brought by Jesus Christ is something I share with Mr Swinney and Miss Forbes.
Well, I come to them from a very deep Christian faith. I believe that nothing can separate us from the love of God.
Has revival broken out in the Scottish Parliament? The First Minister speaking of his deep Christian faith, another MSP as well. Well, to be honest, I think some Christians are so naive that they're thinking this is wonderful. They're thinking this is a real breakthrough. So why am I making this video? Well, I need to explain why people are thinking that are mistaken. And I'm also going to speak to people who often say, we need more Christians in Parliament. That's what we need. I'm going to hopefully show in this video that that's not really the answer. I'm also going to make a little spiritual point, offer an insight later on, which I don't normally do. And the other reason I'm making this video as well is because if I didn't make it, I think my head would explode. I mean, there's so many things here that just need saying, and I've got to say them. Now, the video clips are from the debate in the Parliament where it was being discussed whether or not Kate Forbes would be elected to be the Deputy First Minister. She was elected. So we've got Ross Greer objecting to her nomination.
We cannot support the appointment of someone who believes not only that equal marriage is wrong, but also children being born outside of marriage. So we will oppose the appointment of Kate Forbes for Deputy First Minister. I'm a man of deep Christian faith, but I do not hold the same views as Kate has set out. That statement certainly applies to me, but it wasn't me who said it. It was John Swinney. Last year, the now First Minister said that Kate Forbes was entitled to her views, but that others are entitled to decide if someone who holds those views would be an appropriate individual to be First Minister. As Mr Swinney said then, this is not about whether a person holds to a particular faith. My belief in the good news brought by Jesus Christ is something I share with Mr Swinney and Miss Forbes, and in that we share something far more important than party affiliation or political ideology. Faith is not the issue here. The issue is that I'm being asked to vote for someone who thinks there's something wrong with me. Not because of any views I hold, but simply because of who I am. First Minister, many LGBTQ Scots are afraid today. It would have been wrong to presume Kate Forbes' views simply because the church she is a member of. Ian Blackford is a fine example of a free church member and an elected representative who played a key role in advancing equal marriage rights across these islands.
Now, Ross Greer there, as far as I'm aware, he's basically coming out as gay or bisexual or whatever. I'm not sure he'd said that before. But he's basically saying Kate Forbes is not fit to be Deputy First Minister because she holds traditional Christian views. Now, as far as I'm concerned, in a democracy, that's fine. You can promote whatever set of values you've got, you put them before the electorate, people vote according to that, so I don't have any problem with that. That's not some sort of anti-Christian discrimination, that's just democracy in action. But Ross Greer says, basically, I'm a Christian as well. I'm the right sort of Christian. Kate Forbes is the wrong sort of Christian. And Ross Greer talks about that he believes in the good news of Jesus Christ. Now, when you hear that, that might make you think, oh, Ross Greer, he's sort of on, he's on my side, is he? Well, I think if we spoke to Ross Greer, if I spoke to him about what he thinks the good news of Jesus Christ is, I suspect what he'd say would be unrecognisable in comparison to what I believe the good news of Jesus Christ is. So does Kate Forbes believe there's something wrong with Ross Greer? Well, I'm sure she definitely does. So do I. I mean, there's lots of things wrong with Ross Greer. There's lots of things wrong with me. Kate Forbes will believe that there's lots of things wrong with herself. But what Ross is getting at is, will Kate Forbes, would I believe that his homosexual practice, homosexual relationships, homosexual sex is wrong? Well, yes. Yes, that is what I believe. That is something wrong. That's not saying there's about it's about who you are or there's something wrong with you. It's saying there's something he does that is wrong, if that's what he's saying. Now, Ross Greer puts it as, it's because of who I am. It's not something I chose to do. It's to do with who I am. But that's not true. Kate Forbes' view will not be that anyone who experiences homosexual inclination, attraction, is wrong. It will be that acting on that is not right, which Ross Greer knows that, but he deliberately mischaracterises Kate Forbes' point of view. Ross Greer says that Kate Forbes' nomination will be causing fear and alarm in the LGBT community. I mean, to be honest, no, it won't. Unless you mean fear that there might be a bit more debate, or Kate might say something that they disagree with. But note the term fear and alarm. They're not randomly chosen words. Fear and alarm, in my understanding, they're often used in the law. So for a breach of the peace or abuse or whatever, part of what you might have to show is that a person caused fear and alarm, fear or alarm. Okay, so Ross Greer is sort of hinting that there might be some sort of hate crime or something going on here. Now, Ross Greer holds up Ian Blackford as a fine, upstanding example of a Free Church of Scotland member. So it's basically saying to Kate Forbes, if only you could be like Ian Blackford, he's the right sort of Free Church of Scotland member. Let's remember that Ian Blackford was sort of reprimanded publicly by the Free Church of Scotland for acting in contradiction to the teachings of the Free Church of Scotland. But as far as Ross Greer is concerned, he's the right sort. Now, Ross Greer himself, he says he's a Christian. I'm not particularly going to argue, but I would say he's a special sort of Christian. He's the sort of Christian who engages in foul-mouthed abuse on X. There's one occasion where it was a real foul-mouthed tirade he launched into, and I replied to it on behalf of the Scottish Family Party. I said, Ross, could you tell us more about your Christian faith? And he blocked us from then on. But he's the special sort of Christian who supports the killing of the unborn, supports assisted suicide, supports transgender ideology, supports LGBT indoctrination in schools, etc., etc. Now, at the buffer zone debate as well, he started taking this line, the sort of, I'm the better sort of Christian. These Christians who say they've got these values, they're wrong. Because I'm a Christian, and I'm a better sort of Christian, so I know that your so-called Christian values are not right. So when people say we need more Christians in the Parliament, you want a few more Ross Greers? Do you? Right, so maybe you need to be a bit more specific about what you want in the Parliament. Now, Ross Greer also makes a very valid point. He says John Swinney is a hypocrite. Because a year ago, John Swinney was basically saying Kate Forbes is not fit to be First Minister because of the views that she holds. And now, I think as a result of just political considerations, he's made a Deputy First Minister. So then John Swinney has demonstrated that he's got no principles there. So we'll now hear John Swinney's reply, which is basically being LGBT affirmative, without saying it in as many words. But that's basically his point. Here he is.
We want to make sure that those values of diversity that have been at the heart of the journey of this Parliament over so many years are protected and enhanced as we move forward as a country together. And I come to these conclusions actually from some of the motivations that Mr Greer has talked about as well. I come to them from a very deep Christian faith. I believe that nothing can separate us from the love of God. That is the foundation of who I am. Nothing can separate us from the love of God, and we are equal in the eyes of God, every one of us.
Nothing can separate us from the love of God. I mean, that's a contraction of Romans 8:38 from the New Testament. And he's using that scripture basically to attack Kate Forbes' beliefs. He's using the Bible to deny biblical teaching. He's basically saying that homosexual relationships are morally acceptable in God's eyes because nothing can separate us from the love of God. That is a gross distortion of the meaning of that text. He's basically saying nothing can separate us from the love of God, therefore we can live in defiance of God's revealed standards. So John Swinney uses a biblical quote, totally out of context, total misinterpretation, in order to attack biblical teaching. And Christians in Scotland, quite a lot of them, are saying, this is really lovely. How fantastic it is to hear John Swinney talking about his Christian faith in the Parliament. What a blessing it is. And I marvel at the naivety of Christians who are taking that sort of line. I mean, we all know, well, Christians will know, when Jesus was tempted by Satan in the wilderness, what did Satan do? He quoted the Bible in order to tempt Jesus away from doing God's will. Right, but if John Swinney wants to quote from the book of Romans, well, let's do that. Let's go to Romans chapter 1. God gave them over in their sinful desires of their hearts to sexual impurity for the degrading of their bodies with one another. They exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served created things rather than the Creator. Because of this, God gave them over to shameful lusts. Even their women exchanged natural sexual relations for unnatural ones. In the same way, the men also abandoned natural relations with women and were inflamed with lust for one another. Men committed shameful acts with other men and received in themselves the due penalty for their error. Furthermore, just as they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, so God gave them over to a depraved mind so that they do what ought not to be done. They have become filled with every kind of wickedness, evil, greed, and depravity. So John Swinney is the special sort of Christian who believes that the New Testament teaches that the teaching of the New Testament can be disregarded. Now, during that debate, I believe that it would have been possible for other MSPs to ask to speak, to interrupt that and say, well, actually, I believe what Kate Forbes believes as well. They could have done that, or they could have objected to what Ross Greer was saying. But no, none of them did that. How about later? How about taking to X and making a post saying, well, actually, I believe what Kate Forbes believes as well. Did any of them do that? No. But me, my policy personally is whenever someone's under fire for their beliefs, if I believe the same as they do, I will publicly state my views and I will say I agree with them. And so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to make 3 very short videos over the next couple of days in which I'll explain why I agree with Kate Forbes on these 3 issues. Right, I said I'd offer something of a spiritual insight for what it's worth. Make of it what you will. I think there's a bit of a trend developing in the Scottish Parliament, and that is to promote evil under a Christian banner, to commend sin in the name of Christ. And I believe from God's perspective, that is highly provocative. Let's just put it that way and leave it there. So in terms of leaders, national leaders quoted from the Bible, how about this one? A leader recently of a European nation stated, "There's no greater love than if someone gives his life for his friends." Isn't that wonderful? Wonderful. The leader of a great nation using the Bible like that. It's so moving, it's so heartwarming, isn't it? Which leader was that? That was Putin. And he quoted that part of the Bible in order to justify his invasion of Ukraine. How about some more Christian quotes from leaders in history? How about this character? "Today Christians stand at the head of this country. We want to fill our culture again with the Christian spirit. I believe today that my conduct is in accordance with the will of the Almighty Creator. Even today I'm not ashamed to say that I fell down on my knees and thanked heaven from an overflowing heart for granting me the good fortune of being permitted to live at this time." Now, when you hear that, you can imagine a lot of Christians saying, "Oh, this is wonderful. Revival is upon us. Our leader is bowing before God. This is just absolutely wonderful." Who are those quotes from? Well, you probably guessed it. Hitler. So John Swinney, a lot of Christians seem absolutely delighted that he's misquoted the Bible in order to defy Christian teaching. And yet, for many people in Scotland, when you say to them, John Swinney, he supports killing the unborn. He promoted corrupting and sexualising sex education resources that are really damaging to children in school. The response can sometimes be, "Oh, no, don't be so negative. I don't want to talk about that. Let's talk about the really wonderful thing." He says he's a Christian. He quoted from the Bible in Parliament, to which my response is, so what? So what? So when people say, "Oh, we need more Christians in Parliament," really? More John Swinneys? More Ross Greers? Is that what's really going to be for the good of the nation? What we need in Parliament are Christian values enacted in policy. That would really be for the good of the nation. We don't need people who self-identify as Christians. What we want are Christian values. Now, John Swinney and Ross Greer, are they Christians? I'm not going to make any comments, not going to make any judgments about that. But I think in the Scottish Parliament, what's important is party policy. So in my view, it's not that we need more Christians in the Parliament, it's that we need the Scottish Family Party in the Parliament. Now, if you're interested in these sort of issues I've talked about in this video, do have a look at my book, Christians in Politics. If you'd like a copy, email contact@scottishfamily.org and we can arrange that. contact@scottishfamily.org. Look out for the 3 videos I'm going to make where I agree with Kate Forbes about her controversial opinions. And thanks for watching.